Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are on Earth. I am coming to you live from Umbria, Italy. My guest tonight is joining us from Guadalajara, Mexico. Um, but before we get into that conversation, I wanted to give y'all an update. Um, at the end of March, in honor of my 50th birthday, which I am still celebrating. I asked if y'all wanted to donate money to the curator of the Afro Mestizo Culture Museum in La Costa Chica. I took donations up until April 8th, and we sent Angelica, I believe, 40,000 pesos, which, if you think about that, the minimum wage here is 167 pesos a day. So, so hopefully that's money that, can really go far for her. I want to do a post and thank everybody who donated, but I want to give y'all an update on that before I forgot. She texted me and I think she was surprised. And I think she was very, very appreciative because as the article I shared with y'all pointed out, she's not been getting paid for the work that she does at the museum for several years. So, any little bit we could do helps. Okay. So that is house clean. What is it called? Housekeeping. You can tell I don't do either one of those. So tonight I am joined by a special guest, Miss Marissa Price. Everybody say hello. Marissa, would you tell the people about yourself?
Yeah. So I am Marissa Price. I am a social worker. I am a trauma educator, freelance educator as well, co host of the upcoming Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women, May 16th through 18th, with Dr. Kamani. And yeah, I kind of stumbled upon YouTube, I feel like, as an introvert. This is very still outside of my comfort zone. Sometimes I'm like, how did I get here? But yeah, just the process of sharing my story, trying to understand what was happening to me in a very toxic, traumatic work environment. And along the way, kind of reclaiming my skills, all the things that I'll be talking about at the summit, taking ownership of the things that I brought in to the job, even though it was toxic, right? Having the opportunity to work with businesses, which I do now as a freelancer. And yeah, just trying to reclaim those parts of myself that I lost along the way.
I love to hear that. I love to hear a woman reclaiming things, reclaiming parts. That holds a special significance for me. Um,
Mhm.
well, before we get started, I guess I got to introduce myself because I completely forgot that. Hello, everybody. In case you are new here, my name is Adelia Borchade. Although most people know me as Picky Girl Travels the World, this is my little slice of the internet where we talk about, trying to think of the most concise way to describe what we talk about on this channel, but really it is about Black women um, getting to live the life that they always wanted. And in order to do that, we talk about travel, living abroad, because that's something I always wanted to do. We talk about money, because that's very important in being able to live the life that you want. So having Marissa here tonight fits perfectly with that because, well, y'all are going to find out. But if you are new here, welcome. Glad you are here. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. That way, YouTube knows to bring more of this content to your. Okay, so we got that out of the way. Um, I am on your email list. So I got the email that you sent out today
Oh,
to
you.
your list, letting them know that you would be on this channel. And
Yes.
I'm reading it, and it's talking about how this is a full circle moment.
Okay.
And I don't think I realized that you used to. I had a podcast. I mean, technically, I still do. I just have not recorded any new episodes in a year and a half or so.
Mhm.
But apparently, you listened to the podcast and
Yeah.
gave me a little bit of credit for you being where you are now. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I would like every day in that job as I was kind of making my exit strategy, because it took me about a year to make that. Yeah, I would put on an episode of your podcast. And like still to this day, when I'm feeling like discouraged, defeated, I'm like, hold on. I just heard from so many Black women who accomplish like these amazing feats just by like trusting in themselves, taking a leap, right? Doing planning, of course, that's important, but there's a point where you just have to trust that you're being led towards something greater. And just podcast after podcast, I would like hear things working out, right? For people who like took the brave step towards what was calling them. And I'm like, there's something like deeper about these transitions that we're making. And that just always reminded me like to keep on my plan. Um, and yeah, stay steady in what I was being called to do. And so, yeah, it is a full circle moment. So, thank you again for having me. It's like a dream. Try not to fangirl, but yeah.
Well, you're very welcome. I am glad you're here. Now, you mentioned that you were in a toxic job.
Hmm.
Um, what do you say? And, it is the process of getting out of that environment and, choosing different things and exploring, that has kind of put you on the path that you're on now. What do you say to folks who say that there are no toxic jobs? It's really about you not having like good boundaries.
Mm. Ooh, that's a good question. Part of what I talk about so often on my channel is externalizing what you're experiencing, because that often is the message that we receive in an oppressive society. It's something that you're doing, right? Fix yourself, go within, take off pieces of yourself, shrink a little bit more, right? Doubt what you're saying, and then the treatment that you're experiencing will change. And time over time after time after time after time, right? We've seen that that is false. That's incorrect. It doesn't matter what you do, how many pieces of yourself you take off, right? If the daggers are pointed towards you in an oppressive society, they will be there. And so part of realizing, right, or like healing from this process has been externalizing what I had internalized. Because when I had like taken that on myself, that's when I like the spiral of anxiety, depression started for me. Instead of realizing that I was in a toxic environment that did not value me, that wasn't giving me the resources that I needed to do my job effectively, that was gaslighting me. And that's where I was able to take my power back once I was able to accept the fact that it's not me. And it's not so many of us who find ourselves in these jobs that are toxic. And I just shared this on my channel, but part of the process of healing from self gaslighting is naming what happened to you as a first step and not taking it on yourself. So I think that's so important.
I think that's the collective, we often underestimate the power in being able to label things.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
because when you said that, that made me think about, first of all, what you described. It's not always jobs. Sometimes it's people. Sometimes it's relationships. Um, and so that made me think about when I blew up my life 10 years ago. One of the things that made a huge difference for me, because I had always been told by people, society, what have you, that there was something wrong with me. I was funny acting, all that. I'm
Hmm.
introverted, but I
Yeah.
didn't have that label. And once I had that label, like that made me be able to accept who I am and how I am and that sort of thing. And so I think often we undervalue the power in being able to call a thing, to have
Hmm.
the vocabulary to name something.
Yes. Hmm. That's so important. And I was the same way growing up. as an introvert, right, kind of always going against what everyone around me was doing. Um, yeah, and I didn't know. I thought it was me. Because when you're kind of the only one who sees the world the way that you do and no one else can really get it, that can be a very isolating experience. So yeah, those are important.
Now, it took you more than a year to leave this job. How long had you been working there in total?
About, was that 3 years? I think it was. I think it was about 3 years in total. And it did not start off toxic. So I came in doing one thing which I really enjoyed, like the team that I was working on, the people I was working with. And then after the murder of George Floyd, I was asked to take on an additional role, um, being right out of grad school, leading a pretty big strategy for racial equity. Um, and that kind of blew up because people weren't ready for the truth that I was sharing and the way that I was.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Right. And so, like, a process of me, like, as we just talked about, like, questioning, should I say it like this? Should I couch it like this? Should I, like, when the whole time it wasn't me. And so that was really a draining experience that led to a lot of disillusionment because I had gained like all the credentials that I needed to excel in this role. And I actually was, right? From the outside, like you could not tell anything was wrong, um, which is the case for so many of us as Black women. But inside, I was breaking down internally, and I didn't have the language or the vocabulary for what was happening. Now I know it was from pet to threat. That's what I was
Was
experiencing.
that and what does that mean?
So that is a phenomenon that Black women experience in the workplace, coined by three Black women professors, Dr. Keisha Thomas, Dr. Rosemary Phelps, Dr. Johnson Bailey, who coined this term to describe basically when we're brought in for a skill set to the work environment, things that we can do very well. We're sought out for these things. And then over a process of time, people become intimidated by those same skill set, right? And they try to push you out. They try to, again, instill those seeds of doubt that something's wrong with you. And so the skills that you came in with that you were so confident about, you're starting to question them, doubt yourself, wondering if you can ever go to another environment and feeling like this is your only option. So it's a psychological process of really breaking you down.
I wonder, you said that the job didn't start toxic. I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if you had stayed in kind of your original position, your original team,
Mm-hmm.
was it just that you hadn't seen it yet? And it's just because of where you ended up, you got front
Mm-hmm.
row. I do wonder that
Mm-hmm.
because I would imagine an organization that is that way. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that there's
Mm-hmm.
not like, "Ooh, this little pool of goodness here amongst all this other stuff." That's what I would
Yes.
imagine.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I was able to, yeah, in that position, interacting with people that I hadn't before in the previous role, seeing how things were operating behind the scenes, and then kind of being tokenized, right? Being in this role at that time, we know that 2020, chaotic, right? So many things happening at the same time. And then to be the face of things and expected to uphold the lies while I was seeing what was going on behind the scenes and how I was being treated and how my labor was being undervalued as a Black woman in this role, right? It was really like the truth was kind of pushing against the lies that they were selling. So, yeah.
And so how did you end up in a place where you could be like, this job is not serving me. This is not a good place for me to be? Because I find that it is very hard, given the society in which we live, given the values that are held, and we can talk about like Black excellence and trying to go for the American dream, or just that when you are Black and
Mm-hmm.
you land a position at a certain level, at a certain company, what have you, there is this expectation that pretty much whatever you have to deal with, you're going to deal with it because one, that's part of the game. And two, that's what you got to do so you can keep moving up.
Mm-hmm.
So everything everything we've been told, everything we've been conditioned is don't rock the boat, go
Mm-hmm.
along to get along. And so I am curious, particularly because you are introverted, how
Mm-hmm.
you were able to arrive at this place where you were like, you know what, deuces, y'all, I'm out.
Mm. That's a good question. I think YouTube. So stumbling across your podcast, of course, seriously, Dr. Kamani's channel. And I was in Rashida Dow's group as well, from Burnout to Bliss. And so seeing Black women make their exit plans, right, that included moving abroad, which I had never considered before, that was even an option available to me. I was like, okay. First of all, it confirmed what I was experiencing in a very toxic work environment. In therapy, also. So I came into therapy originally like trying to fix myself for this environment, and having her reflect back to me that it's actually just the environment, that I'm fine. It's like kind of like simple but freeing at the same time. So with that information, I was able, like, it all happened kind of at the same time. So therapy, YouTube, from burnout to bliss, coaching from burnout to bliss led to Exit Summit, um, and just seeing and hearing the different experiences of Black women and being able to connect the dots, which I think as introverts, right, a lot of us love to listen. And so I love to listen. And so I was able to kind of connect the dots as I was learning from people's stories and externalize the treatment that I was experiencing, right? Clearly, there's something wrong with this environment, and I don't need to be in it. But that was over a process of months, a year plus of me realizing it, taking in information, sitting with it, reflecting on it, and then planning, right? Getting curious. I think that's a huge part of it. Opening your mind to what could be possible as you make your exit strategy and your plan. Sitting with the fact that you're the self awareness that you are being harmed is the first process. And that's where like community storytelling really helps with that. Because if you're not able to see it for yourself in whatever you're in, if you hear from someone else's story and see that that's clearly wrong how they're being treated, and be like, oh, we're actually kind of being treated the same way, that can be a powerful first step in realizing that you can exit. So it's like a combination of all those things for me.
I think that is, I I was thinking about this when I was trying to come up with my questions or whatnot. I imagine that there is a woman listening to you talk about this, and she's like, "Oh, that is so sad. She had this job that was mistreating her," but can't see it for herself. And
Mhm.
so I think the work that you and Dr. Kamani are doing, hosting this summit, can kind of do that same thing, just like you were hearing the stories of these other women, hearing, oh, look how she's being treated, look how I'm being treated, hearing about, oh, this is how she's handling that. I think um the summit might be good for that woman who is listening at this and thinking, oh, that's so sad for her, but that's not me.
Mhm.
Because when I think about liberation and how you liberated yourself from this toxic job, and I think about Black women liberating themselves from, because that's really low key what I'm all about, is Black women getting free from situations that do not serve them.
Mhm.
um and that there is such power in being in a space where there are other people either going through something similarly or sharing their insights, their experiences, their knowledge.
Yes.
So you you know listening to the podcast, being in Rashida's From Burnout to Bliss, watching YouTube videos, all of that, that gets you to a place where you're like, this is not where I'm supposed to be. And um, you didn't just haul off and quit one day, correct?
Correct. Hmm.
Okay. Was that, I assume that was intentional? Why didn't you just quit and walk out?
Yeah, it was intentional. So I had to get my financial plan together. And I think looking back in retrospect, right, I realized I could have transitioned to another job. Like, but at the time, like, it really didn't feel like it because, again, I had spent so much time, effort, energy into what I thought, like pouring into what I thought was my dream job, that the prospect of even going to another job just felt like impossible at this point. It felt like I had poured too much into it. And so I stayed, right? I took FMLA leave for 11 weeks, and that allowed me to have the time to travel abroad for the first time, which changed my life. And then I went back. I went back into the same environment. The people, the person above me, who was triggered before, I think her trigger got even more intense with jealousy, I guess, at the fact that I was able to take leave, and especially like as a Black woman in the workplace, right? We're taught that these things are often like off limits to us, and so now like understanding that makes sense. But yeah, just going back into that environment, trying to get like my financial plan in order before I was able to transition into freelancing. So starting off as a virtual assistant. So yeah, that took me a while. I went back for about 6 months after that FMLA leave.
Okay. And when you went back after your FMLA, did you really expect it to be any different?
I did have hope.
I mean,
I
it's
did.
okay if you did.
I did. I did. Yeah. But now that I had the understanding after being away for 11 weeks, because things were starting to heal within my body, right? Because I was experiencing insomnia, a lot of other physical symptoms from the stress that had started to heal during those 11 weeks. And then when I went back in, I feel like those symptoms intensified even more, because I did have that hope, right? And actually, like linking it back to childhood experiences. That's how children, that's how we often get through very traumatic experiences, by holding on to hope. And I had that same hope at that, like as an adult. Um, but yeah, that was an intense period, those 6 months. And so I recommend, if you can, to make a final exit strategy from whatever job that you're in. Don't make going back in part of that if you can help it at all, because it's going to get worse. There's no scenario where it gets better. Hmm.
It- because again, the person who's doing the work and making the effort is you. Those
Hmm.
people are still at that job being who they were
Hmm.
before
Hmm.
you left. So it is
Yeah.
highly unlikely that's going to change.
Yeah.
Um, Stephanie talks about time off as kind of being like the gateway drug. I have found that it is very difficult after you've had true free time, like
Hmm.
where there's no constraint on what you can do, what you have to do, that sort of thing. It is very difficult to go back into a space where you don't have that, where people aren't being nice to you, people are mistreating you, you're being stressed. Like
Yeah.
that's a very hard thing to go back into. I think now I am probably unemployable. I didn't really own that before. Because I
Hmm.
kind of always thought, shit hits the fan, this is what I'll go back and do. And like now, I I don't even want, I feel appalled that anyone would even ask me to fill out an application for a job. I should just be able to say, hey, I want that job. And that
Yes.
should be enough. So if if that's the level of effort I am willing to put in, I do not foresee my future being one where I have to go and like work for somebody for real.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you tell the people a little bit about about this event? Because this is y'all second year hosting. the summit, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So yeah, this is so it's over a period of 3 days this year. So we'll have like a kickoff session with Coach Yolanda, who is the spiritual life coach who really helped me. I was still in the job in exit planning. She also helped me connect back to my spiritual gifts, which I had no concept of before. Right, I kept trying to fit into these environments, like hoping that things would change, and just realizing there are certain parts of ourselves that are just permanent because they're spiritual gifts. And so she'll be kicking off May 16th with Internal Freedom First. So I'm really excited about that, which is like a grounding meditation before we get into the weekend. And so the weekend is 2 full days of sessions, 10 sessions each day. So the first day is really about reclaiming yourself. So we have different guest speakers coming in. Giovanna May Reese will be talking about breath work. Alicia Renice will be talking about reconnecting to your creativity. I'll be talking about how to take your power back, own your skill set. Dr. Kamani will be leading a session on Afroflow yoga. So she's actually practicing to be a certified Afroflow yoga instructor. So that will be the end of day one. We have so many amazing sessions. Stephanie Rashida, of course, Stephanie will be talking about um, detoxing from a toxic job. Rashida will be talking about your post liberation life and how to plan that. And then day two is really about building your strategy. So we have people talking about how to tap back into your skill sets, revise your resume. Krishan will be talking about how to make money from anywhere, online income, which has been such a huge part of this journey for me, right? Pivoting into freelancing, owning my skill set, and then working with other business owners to help them grow their businesses. And yeah, Anne Marie Archer will be ending day two with how to know your legal rights in the workplace, how to document things to potentially negotiate an exit strategy or an exit severance. So yeah, day one and day two, reclaiming yourself and then actually building your strategy. And then day zero, I guess, that Friday will be the grounding meditation.
That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
if I wanted to work, I would definitely be there, but I don't want to. And that's okay. And
That's
that's
fair.
okay.
Hmm.
It I can't help but think about, there was something you said a little earlier about, part of folks not leaving when the situation is bad. And I think you said this about yourself, is it's kind of like how much time I've put into this and not wanting to walk away from that investment. And I think it is very liberating when you get to the point that you realize that it doesn't matter how long you've done something or been in a place. Um, that whatever that investment is in time is not worth the harm that is being caused to you mentally, physically, health wise, what have you. Um, we are, we say these things in our culture about like, don't be a quitter, and like you got to follow through and all this kind of stuff. And I think about all that does is encourage us to be in places and spaces that are not healthy, that are harmful, and have us feeling like compelled to be in these places.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
think if you examine that, like, because there's so much about how we interact with work, how we think about work, that we don't question. We just accept. Well, this is what you're supposed to do. This is how this is supposed to go. Like your boss is supposed to be an asshole. You're super, super lucky if you get one that isn't, you know. Um, if your team, you like the people on your team, it's okay, you should stay, because even if the boss is mistreating you, because you've got this good team, instead of realizing like, hey, these jobs ain't loyal, these people will repurpose your position. I had that happen to me once. um, they will lay you off. Your loyalty to them and the people you work with will not be reciprocated. It is so easy to fall into the trap of just accepting that and not questioning it, particularly when it doesn't feel good. I think we're all very quick to be like, to dismiss that discomfort
Mhm,
as
mhm,
either this is just how it is, this is part of it, just dismiss it instead of taking a moment and saying, okay, look how I'm feeling. Like I think I told you
mhm,
this story. I may have. It might have been Dr. Kimani. Um, when my job was repurposed and they were like, here we are at this meeting on Thursday afternoon. We would like you to tell us before you leave what you're going to do now that we've repurposed your position. Are you going to go back to the classroom? Or are you going to do, what are you going to do? Like, folks are married, they've got partners they need to have a conversation with, all that. And they were like, we're doing away with your position. We have some new positions that don't have a name, don't have a description. We can't really tell you about them, but we need to know, do you want one of these? And I can say foolishly now, at the time, I didn't realize it. I was like, yeah, I'll go for one of those positions. And I'm already not a good person on job interviews because, again, like, what are we doing here? Are you going to give me the job or not? Like, I don't want to play these games. And that
yeah.
doesn't, surprisingly, that doesn't go over very well in a job interview. But somehow, some way, I got one of these new positions, and that woman was horrible. The lady who was my boss. Um, the very first meeting we had with her, she called me at home off contract to let me know that I was not being a team player because I was asking questions, and I had folded my arms during the meeting. Um, and I found that that woman literally drove me to drink. Like
Mhm,
every week, every Friday, we were like, oh, we survived this week. Y'all want to go get some drinks? And then I realized like how much my drinking had increased since I started working for this woman. But,
mhm, mhm,
luckily, I did come to my senses within a year, and I was like, I should not have to feel this way when I come to work. And I was like, I'm out. Um,
mhm.
that also made me a target of her what do you call it when you try and get a lick back with somebody? Not repercussions, what's the word?
Retaliation?
That's the word.
Mhm,
Where I found a new position, different location, all that, and she called my new boss to tell her not to hire me. Like,
wow.
it was wild. And also, like, there's also like there was a racial component too. Like, she wasn't giving
Mhm,
anybody, I was the only black person, and I was the only person she was giving so much grief to
mhm,
where it finally got to the point that I was like, do not contact me outside of the presence of somebody from HR, because like this is ridiculous. But the fact that it took so long for me. I kept dismissing things. And it took so
mhm,
long for me to get to a point where I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not playing these games. So, like I said, there's so much that we will put up with and tolerate
mhm,
and not question, because either we're supposed to be thankful, we're supposed to be so lucky that we've got this position, we got in this place, we're working for this company,
mhm,
all of those things. And I want us to be, um I was going to say disrespectful, but maybe that's not the right word. But I want us to be less inclined to just kind of go with the flow. We need to be rocking some boats out here,
mhm,
is what I think.
mhm. Absolutely.
So you were in this situation with this job. You found kind of a bit of a lifeline. You started to make your plan. You made your exit, and
Mhm,
you have gone from what you thought was a dream job and was not,
Hmm.
to working for yourself.
Yes.
How has that been?
Yeah, it's been a process in and of itself. Yeah, of trying not to replicate what I was exposed to, which can be very difficult to do. If you're trying to chart a new path, like in anything, right, you're having to build the blueprint. So there was a period where I was kind of being my own toxic boss in a sense, right? Kind of overworking, pushing myself. Um, and just after, I feel like was that about a year? I feel like that was about a year into entrepreneurship. Kind of leading into self trust has been huge for me. Letting things kind of flow, trusting that the right clients will find their way to me if I am authentic, um, if I do a good job in my business, all these things, and just letting things flow from there. That has been huge for me. But yeah, I started as a freelancer, as a virtual assistant in March 2023, I think. Yes. So that was when I launched my business, Free Black Woman Virtual Solutions, starting off as a virtual assistant to Black women digital entrepreneurs. And I just kind of ended those services at the end of last year. And I'm transitioning into coaching. So I am a coach, I'm a formally trained social worker coaching Black women through healing from trauma, traumatic job experiences, often. Also, a freelance coach. So, if you have a dream of becoming a freelancer, how do you even start? How do you own your skill set to be able to generate income? If you want to move abroad, if you want to travel, become a digital nomad, all these things that are accessible to us too, but they're often told to us as off limits and for other people to take advantage of. But we often have so many skills, so many talents that we can utilize to, we just need to know how to package them, I feel like. And so that's what I help people do through, I have another YouTube channel besides Marissa Price Heals, which is Black Women Freelancers, and also a community of Black women at any stage of the freelancing journey. If you're just starting, if you have an idea, if you've already been a freelancer for some time and you're looking to attract new clients, we have weekly accountability sessions, quarterly business planning sessions. So, trying to really like tap into my skill set of working in business and how all the parts kind of come together, sharing it with other Black women so that we can build our businesses collectively and not become our own toxic bosses because no, we don't need that.
I want to talk about the work the coaching work that you do, but I want to spend a little time talking about you being your own toxic boss.
Yeah.
What do you mean? First question is, what do you mean when you say that?
Hmm. So I think pushing myself past my limits as an entrepreneur. I had the same things, right, that you just mentioned in a toxic job. So feeling like I should be lucky that I'm now an entrepreneur, so I have to overwork myself. Um, the self doubt was there. This is the first time I kind of done anything like this in my life. So what if no one wants to work with me? Then I have to like push myself or like convince people. All these like much deeper wounds that I don't think are really talked about when you're entering entrepreneurship that may show up because now it's just you, right, doing all these things. You're essentially like handling all these tasks yourself. You're having to attract clients, put your messaging out there, which as an introvert can be already kind of difficult for me to do. um, and so realizing like I have what it takes to do this. I'm seeing all these other people do this thing, and of course like the journey is challenging of being a freelancer. I'll be the first one to say that. But there's so many people who are just like, yeah, I'm going to take my skills in transition to freelancing. Why not? I've gained all these skills. I've worked in these workplaces. I have the network. I can learn along the way. I think that's been a huge part of not being my own toxic boss is realizing that I can learn along the way and I don't have to be perfect at anything starting off. Giving myself a lot more grace and self compassion in this journey. And so in that way, like healing has kind of and entrepreneurship have kind of like fit together in that way for me.
What do you wish you would have done differently when you first, started your business? Or, yeah, I think that's the question I want to ask. And I'm still thinking about you putting yourself in a situation where you had a toxic boss because
Mm-hmm.
it's it's very hard. I see that as the same as like folks leaving relationships with somebody who don't treat them right and they don't
Mhm.
take off time in between and like process
Right.
all of what was going on there. And it's very easy to kind of fall back into that, end up connecting with somebody else who treats you in a very similar way. So I'm wondering, what do you wish you would have known or done differently?
That's a really good question. I think I may have documented what I was experiencing and negotiated a severance package because I had no idea that I was able to do that in the job that I was in. And that would have provided me like with the financial cushion, I think, to take time off before I entered into entrepreneurship. So that's probably the first thing. I think that is important if you can to take space, especially before you start a business, because it's going to require all of you. Um, yeah, to take space to heal, to process what you've been through, to reclaim those parts of yourself so that you're not entering into it kind of feeling like you have to be in the same environment, you have to recreate it for yourself. I think that I would do that differently. And yeah, trying to think of what else. Probably packaging my services different, and also like valuing what I do. Because I think that was a core component that was missing from as I like reflect back on my work experiences too. I didn't really value what I brought to the table, right? I was kind of like, again, I'm so grateful, thankful that they gave me this opportunity versus they're lucky to have me making that
That part,
transition. Yeah.
that part right there.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's been a huge mindset shift that I've had to adopt, right? Part of it's like taking back your power. That's really what it comes down to. Taking back your power, owning what you bring to the table, knowing that whoever you interact with, it's like a mutually beneficial relationship instead of feeling like you have to like shrink and hope they accept you. Yeah, and healing from, I don't know, healing from attachment wounds all the way back in childhood has been a part of that too. So it really goes very deep.
Um, hmm. Okay, so now I can ask the question about because you started as a virtual assistant, but you said you now do coaching. Um,
Mhm.
now I guess I consider, well, do you consider the coaching that you do you consider that to be like liberation work?
Mhm.
Because I I think it's not coincidental that your summit is called um
Mhm.
I just
Job
I
liberation.
just lost the words for what it's called.
Job liberation
In
versus
my
summit. Yeah.
defense, it is almost 2 a.m. here. Okay.
Yes.
So remind us what it's called.
Yes. The Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black women. For Black women at
Okay.
any stage of the process, questioning if you're in a toxic job, reclaiming yourself, or making your strategy.
Okay. And I'm on the assumption here, and you tell me if I'm wrong, that the choice of calling it, liberation from toxic jobs, that was intentional.
hmm Yeah, very much so. hmm hmm
Okay. And so the coaching that you do, is that also like liberatory work?
It is. It is. Yeah. Um, so a lot of the times, like my clients will be healing from past traumatic experiences. And so helping like coaching people through the same process that I went through, really reclaiming those parts of yourself, learning that you were actually like extremely powerful. That's why you were being targeted in these environments. And just that mindset shift can be life changing. Because then you realize, oh, nothing was wrong with me this entire time. It was just people's reactions to the power that I brought in to the space. And I can now reclaim that, right? It's never too late once you have that awareness. And so it's very much, it's called healing and liberation coaching. And that's what I do as a coach. So yeah, reclaiming those parts, tapping back into your inherent power. hmm
What about somebody who could could probably stand some healing and liberation, but it's they're thinking to themselves, it's not the job. Like maybe some of what they're hearing tonight resonates with them, but they're like, it's not my job. My job isn't the problem. I don't need to go to this event because I don't have a problem with my job. Is there is there a way to see, like, is that actually the case? Or is it, or maybe this is part of the work that you do, helping folks identify what areas of their life they might need a little liberation in? I don't know.
Hmm.
You tell me.
Hmm. I think so. Yeah. And I think if you have even like an inkling that you're being harmed or something feels off or things like you said before, does it feel good? If it doesn't feel good, that's information to kind of probe a little bit deeper, um, and refrain from always coming back to you, right? It must be me because this job on paper is like perfect, right? Something that everyone would want, something I should be grateful for, or this environment, whatever situation you're in. But if it doesn't feel good to you, there's something off. And I would just invite people to kind of question that. And so, yeah, if you're not sure that it's the job, we have speakers from all over that run the gamut. If you're just trying to reclaim your self worth, and maybe you're in your dream job, right? But there are past experiences that are kind of feel like they might be dragging you down so that you're not able to fully be open to this new experience. I would say the summit is for you too, right? At any stage of the process, because these past job experiences can show up in new ones, and we won't even expect them sometimes, right? And that's how trauma works. If you haven't had the space to process what you've been through, often it will show up again when you least expect it. And so, yeah, if you're still healing from a past experience, even if you're in a job that feels great, I would invite you to come too, just to be able to process in safe community what has happened and reclaim those parts. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I'm looking, trying to read my handwriting, which is becoming more of an issue as I get a little older. Um, if y'all got questions for Marissa, please drop those in the chat so we can get them answered. Okay. I think I asked that. We talked about, oh, what does that say? This is what's funny. I wrote the question. The question is very general. And then I added a little note to remind myself what I meant by the question I wrote. I don't understand the note. I gotta do, I've got to do better. Okay. All right. I think we have hit most of my questions. I don't know if y'all here have any questions for Marissa about um, specifically the Job Liberation Summit for Black women that will be happening. When is that happening, Marissa?
May 16th through 18th. And then we have 3 bonus Zoom sessions on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday following, if you have the all access pass too. Mhm.
Okay, so that will be a little, what's today, the 15th? So
Yeah, about a month
um,
away. Hmm.
in about a month. So if you have questions about that, if you've got questions about the work, the other work that she does, coaching, freelancing, this would be a great time to ask that. I find that a lot of folks are not considering freelancing as an option because I think, again, particularly for us as Black women,
Hmm.
the idea is I need a job where I know
Hmm.
what my check is going to be. I know when my
Hmm.
check is coming in. Um, I find in my conversations, particularly because I talk to a lot of women who would like to move abroad. And so one of the big issues is, okay, well, how am I going to support myself? And they're like, well, I'm trying to find remote work. Because again, they're thinking, I need a job.
Hmm.
Whereas, like you've pointed out, you've got skills. It's
Hmm.
possible for a lot of y'all that the work that you already do at your job. You can just do that as a freelancer. But I think there is some trepidation because I don't know how much I'll be making every week, every other week. There's that loss of the, I don't know, the structure, the system that, I again, particularly for Black women, like, girl, you go to school, you get the degree so you can go get the job, so that you can achieve this level of the American dream. And so you can ascend. And I'm finding that people are seeing freelancing as risky and are hesitant to pursue that, when I'm thinking like being a freelancer actually kind of removes a lot of limits
Mm-hmm.
from 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 you, you
Mm-hmm.
know, going to work for yourself as opposed to working at a place where people aren't treating you right. To me, that seems like a great option. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if you've got anything to say about that, or if you have experienced that at all with the folks that you work with.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, I think those fears are real because that's all we've been taught for a lot of us, like you said, is to immediately seek out a job. Um, and freelancing can be done at your own pace. So if you want to enter into it part time to get a feel for it, because entrepreneurship freelancing is not for everyone, because there's a lot, right? You're a solopreneur, right? It's a huge transition from working in a job. But if you have an idea, right, if you have skills that you can utilize, again, as a social worker, and this has only been over the past like year that I've realized, and that's why I've transitioned to coaching, that I can literally take my degree that I've been trained to work with people to coach them through things, right? I don't have to be a virtual assistant, even though that's how I started and how I like built my business and everything like that. I can actually go back to the skills that I've already gained as a social worker and just offer that service to people, right? Versus being in an organization that will probably try to limit what I can do, the people that I can work with. And we've seen that, like,
When you can work.
yeah, yeah. We've seen that jobs that we've been told are secure or are in place for a lifetime can just be pulled from you just like that. And that, just that realization, right? So at any pace that you want to enter into freelancing and begin the process of refining your offer, putting it out into the universe, which can be very scary because it's not going to be perfect when you first start, right? But a lot of the times, our first clients come from the networks that we're already in. And so, leveraging that, have you heard someone mention that they need help with something and you know that you can assist them? And from there, it's a process of having a payment link, a way for them to pay you, having a simple contract in place, and then being able to deliver the service. Those are like the three basics of free. And so sometimes people will think like the process is like very complicated. You have to do all these things. And it's actually really simple in that sense that you just need those three basic elements. And then it's a process over time of refining what you offer, getting the feedback from the clients that you're working with to offer different products or services, understanding how to package your services. I think that's one of the parts that I would do differently if I could start over again. Packaging my services in a way that to generate or to make the income streams more steady and know that you have the power to do that, right? So, for instance, if you're a virtual assistant, instead of working hourly, you can package your services into retainer packages, right? And it's kind of ChatGPT has been really helpful with that process for me too. If you have an idea of being a freelancer, just typing that in. How could this be a more stable source of income? And how can I package my services in a way that I can offer them to clients, maybe people that are already in your existing network? Um, so I think like everything is, when it comes to like the system of capitalism, like everything is risky, right? So the jobs that are in place
There
are
is
not
a
really going to
connection between risk and reward.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
you don't take the risk, but that is definitely going to limit you on the reward part of it.
Mhm.
Okay, I am curious. I want to get your input on this. She said, my friend is freelancing. She can earn 30K in a month and then be dry in a few months. It's the inconsistent salary that makes me nervous.
Mhm.
And I think that is a valid concern.
Mhm.
Um, is there any advice or anything you can say that might help somebody kind of assuage that concern?
Mm. So I think part of that may be like planning for the inconsistency, if that makes sense. Because the very nature, right? You're working with different people, you're having to put your offer out there constantly. Like it ebbs and flows as a freelancer. So can you in advance prepare for that season to come by saving chunks of money and not feeling like, again, in a job, that 30K a month is going to come consistently because you're a freelancer, right? It's not in stone in that sense, but you can also prepare for the months where you have less client activity, less people, right, contacting you for services by kind of saving away chunks of money to get you through those months. So that would be my advice.
My advice would be that this is where knowing your numbers becomes really, really important. If you have no idea what it costs for you to be alive, what are the minimum costs you're going to have for your business? Like, low key, 30 grand in 1 month, like I could live off that for the rest of the year. I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to work for the rest of the year. But if
Mm-hmm.
that 30K hits your account and you're like, oh, let's go shopping, let's go live large,
Mm-hmm.
like if you know your numbers and you know that, hey, this is enough money for me to take care of all the stuff I have to,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
then that takes some of the pressure off. But if you don't know what it costs for you to be here, for you to be alive, then you're never going to feel secure in how much money you're making because you don't know how much you need to be making.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be really important. And this is not just freelancing. This is any kind of industry where your how much you earn is inconsistent. I think it
Mm-hmm.
becomes that much more important to really know your numbers,
Mm-hmm.
so that you are not always kind of living with this fear of, oh my gosh, am I going to be homeless tomorrow because I didn't land 3 new clients or what have you.
Yes. That's very important. Mm-hmm.
Like what Dr. O said, I found that transitioning from a salary to entrepreneur is a challenge, but worth it. I agree that severance helps cushions the journey. You have to separate your identity from your job title. I think, particularly in US American culture, um, there is this big connection between the job title you have and your value as a person.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And it is sometimes hard to walk away from a job where maybe it doesn't feel good to go there every day, where those people are mistreating you because the title,
Yeah.
because the industry is prestigious. Um, but you are not your job title. Um, I get thrown off every time somebody asks me what I do because I'm like, I don't know. I don't, and that's how little I
Yeah.
think about. So I'm always like, and I don't know, maybe people think I sell drugs or something, but I'm always at a loss because I have separated me and my job so far apart, they will never meet
Mm-hmm.
again.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else that you would like the folks watching this, either the ones who are here now or the folks who are watching the replay? Is there a message that you want to leave them with?
You have the power to pivot at any point in life. Again, no matter what your job title, your role, all these things that we are told are very important. And like you said, kind of attached to your identity. Once you begin the work of separating those two, you realize like you were a person before you had any of these things. You were worthy before the title before the role. Um, and you always have the power to go in a different direction. I think that's like what I've gotten from your channel, Adelia, right? The agency that we have within us. Once we have that level of awareness that something is off or that more is calling us, that you have, right, in community is such a huge part of that, being able to share resources and knowledge with each other. But you have what it takes. If it's leading you, right, if you're being led in that direction, you have what it takes to go in that direction. And it's just a matter of affirming that to yourself over time. And that's something we'll be touching on at the Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. Realizing that you have the power to pivot at any stage into whatever direction you want on your timeline. It's all about your agency.
Okay. All right. There is a link for the summit in the description of this video. Um, it sounds incredible. It really, really does.
Thank you.
Like I said, again, if I wanted to work, I would be there. But I have no interest in working, hardly at all. Doing my taxes today, I was like, well, I didn't really work last year. I don't think I'm gonna work this year. I'm okay with that. And that I don't know, maybe the folks who listen to the podcast will be able to grasp this, but that is such a different place from who I used to be, because the anxiety and the uncertainty of that would not have allowed me to sleep at night. And now I am like, the universe will unfold as it should, and
Mm-hmm.
not pressed by it at all. But um, it seems like y'all have really curated an event where you've thought about, you've come, I don't know if holistically is the word here, but what I find with so many of the online events, they come from a very, like, how can I say this in an inoffensive way? From a very, like, money grubby kind of, like, hustle, you know,
Mm-hmm.
earn that. And I love that y'all have kind of looked at the entire process, at the entire woman, and
Mm-hmm.
are addressing all of those parts, because it's so much more than just get a job that's going to pay you a lot of money, girl. It's so
Mm-hmm.
much more than that.
Yeah.
And I really love that y'all have been intentional about curating this space and making sure that you're addressing all parts of this process. um, and I think that's really, really special. So if you are someone who is in a place professionally that is not good for you, that is not meeting your needs, and you need to go elsewhere, I think next month you need to be at this event at the, and I just had it and just lost it. This
Job
is this is
liberation.
the part about being 50 that don't nobody tell you about. Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. Now, are there replays?
Yes. Yeah. So with the standard pass, you'll get 3 days of replays. That Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday following the summit. And then with the all access pass, you have replays for a year. If you need more time to digest the information, to learn from it, let it sink in a little bit, yes, you can get that with the all access pass.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming to
Thank
hang out with
you.
us tonight, this morning, whenever it is. Y'all take care. Enjoy. There's a holiday coming up. Enjoy that. And who knows, maybe I will finally finish editing this video that I have been working on for a month of Sundays, and maybe that'll go up on Friday. We shall see. But y'all take care, and I will talk to y'all next.